We are in Monrovia, Liberia, West Africa. You could not have recognized this city 5 years ago if you had seen it then. A ferocious civil war was tearing the country apart, and the citizens were running away, scattered to every corner of West Africa but Liberia. Many things have emerged out of the ashes of Liberia's war, and one man found his calling.
Painting is my life. I'm a born artist. I have always been painting. There was no time in my life when I was not an artist.
This week on African Voices, Liberia's most celebrated artist, Lumeh. Monrovia, the capital city of Liberia, has remained much the same for the last century and a half. And the locals will tell you that since the founding fathers first came here to set up this country named after the idea of liberty and call it Liberia, their lives have been plagued by wars. There have been so many factions. Charles Taylor is currently in the dock in The Hague facing crimes against humanity. And there have been so many other people, Samuel Johnson, Prince Johnson, Samuel Doe, and their lives have completely ruined the lives of ordinary Liberians. All of Liberia's citizens, whether they were combatants or not, were deeply affected by Liberia's war. Lumeh chronicled Liberia's conflict on canvas. He also lived it.
From the onset, when the conflict began, I was here in Monrovia, and then as it dragged on, I came towards the city got cut up. I got behind the lines, what was called the lines in those days. That was the rebel area. I found myself there.
Was the war so bad that everyone had to leave?
It was worst. I think that's the word English people have. The word next from bad is worst. The war was worst, that you had to leave. Everybody had to leave. There was no mercy. There was no one was privileged.
So the gun was the only thing that could save you?
Yeah, that could save. That's how they felt. The gun could save you. The gun could save them. But mind you, if you have a gun and you belong to another faction or to another unit, and another unit sees you, they're going to kill you and take your gun. All the images stay on my mind, very fresh. It's going to be very hard for people of Monrovia to forget the conflict. Even people throughout the length and breadth of Liberia, it's going to take them some time before they can forget about the conflict.
With the war raging, what could an artist do?
I started to do a couple of paintings, trying to work along, trying to recreate all the scenes that I saw during the war, trying to sketch them. Later on, I came across a set of watercolor. I started to apply colors on those things. And people started to tell me that they loved them, and I started to sell them. Just like that, people started expressing high interest in them, mainly international journalists. I continued to paint, to do my drawings. And I went and introduced myself to the chief of Marine at the time. When I say introduce myself, I just didn't walk there. I say, hey, I'm Lumeh. No, I did an artwork depicting the rebels and their activities. And then I put it in an envelope, and I sent it with the tent in which I live, the address, the number of the tent, because I live in a displaced camp. And I put it in this envelope and took it at the embassy gate, and I told the security network there, I said, this is for the Marine chief. And after 3 days, I was at my tent. An intercom security walked to me and said, hello. He said, I'm looking for one Lumeh. I said, oh, I'm the one. He said, okay, you are wanted at the embassy tomorrow morning. So I put everything together. I was at the embassy. So the work started to flow. It was just going on like this. You have journalists coming, buying them, and all that stuff. It was through the help of some foreigners and other people. I found myself in the Ivory Coast. There I was for 8 years with my family. I came back 8 years later.
8 years later. So for 8 years you were absent from your city and you carried on painting?
Yes, I continued painting while I was in exile. I came back and I was painting. I was drawing before the war. I started to paint during the war. I went in exile. During my exile years, I was painting. I didn't go to refugee camps in Ivory Coast. I never had a refugee ID card. I integrated myself into the system without the help of United Nations refugee stuff. No, because it's a lot of waste of time. You have to go and stand in the rain wait for papers. Oh, we don't want to see refugees today. I can't stand those things. Humiliating. You know what my wife, because when my wife used to feel, said, let's go and get this refugee status. And one day I decided to just please her. Let me just please her. We went there. And she saw it. It was disheartening, you know, of her condition. I think you saw my wife. She's someone who has a physical disability. And they didn't even have regards for that.
So few people in such a huge and beautiful country sitting on the Western African Peninsula with all the natural resources you can think of. You're talking about timber, rubber, gold, minerals, diamonds, and yet you choose to kill each other.
Ignorance. Ignorance is the author of all these things. You will never go and shoot at your brother if you are well informed, if you are well educated. But in a society, in a place where you have 95% of the population completely illiterate, that cannot read and write, if you find yourself in a society like that, you can manipulate the people easily. No one can manipulate me to take a gun to go and kill my brother or my sister. You can't do that to Leslie. They can't do that to you. That's why education remains the bedrock for this country.
The scars of Liberia's recent past are everywhere you look. We are seated in the carcass of one of West Africa's most famous hotels, the Duco Intercontinental Hotel, overlooking the city of Monrovia and the Atlantic Ocean.
A lot of immense unnecessary destruction.
When people think of Monrovia, Liberia, they think Charles Taylor, warlords, a guy called General Butt Naked.
Yeah.
What does that do to you as an artist?
Well, it makes me feel bad. But then I ask myself the question, are you just going to feel bad and continue feeling bad and transmit that bad feeling to upcoming generation? I said, no. I don't have to keep that bad feeling.
Really?
Yes, I don't have to keep it.
What can your art do to mend Liberians' lives?
The art can transform our society for the better. The art can change this particular war-torn country.
On his way back from exile, Lumeh continued to paint scenes of his country's newfound peace. He watched the refugees return and committed the images to canvas. It seemed like a work that was full of social commentary.
It's a colorful history that I'm writing, you know, from child soldiers. Even during the election time, I did painting during the election that put Mr. Taylor to power. I painted, you know, during that time. And even this present election time, I did paintings depicting this present election that brought President Salif to power. And I'm just going according to what the people are doing. You know, I'm not creating, I'm not inventing these things. I'm just painting what is, you know, upholding in front of my eyes.
Coming up, an exclusive look at Leslie Lumeh, Liberian artist at work, and his art of the heart.